Have you ever poured years of your life into chasing a goal, only to finally reach it and realize it didn't make you nearly as happy or fulfilled as you thought it would? Maybe you worked endless hours for a promotion that barely changed your day-to-day life, or chased a milestone because everyone around you said it was the next step, only to feel like you'd been climbing the wrong mountain the whole time. The truth is, not all life goals are created equal. In fact, some of the ones we're told to pursue from a young age can end up wasting precious time, energy, and opportunities for things that truly matter. In this video, I'm going to share 5 life goals that might sound admirable on the surface, but are actually holding you back from real growth, freedom, and happiness, and what you should focus on instead. Goal number 1, chasing status. On the surface, the pursuit of status looks like the ultimate motivator. It dangles the promise of admiration, respect, and validation from your peers, your family, even strangers. That luxury car, the corner office, the designer clothes, the title on your LinkedIn profile, these are all symbols that society tells us will prove we've made it. It feels like if you can climb high enough, you'll finally silence the doubts and insecurities inside. But here's the harsh truth: status is a moving target. The more you chase it, the more it slips away, because someone will always have more. The joy of reaching that milestone fades shockingly fast, and before long, you're back on the treadmill, running harder to keep up appearances instead of building a life that actually fulfills you. Many people believe that status equals happiness, that once they achieve a certain level of recognition, all their insecurities will vanish. Others assume that public recognition will automatically open doors to influence and meaningful opportunities, as if applause alone creates connection. And a big one: that superficial admiration equals deep respect. But those handshakes at networking events, the likes on social media, or the nods of approval from acquaintances often evaporate the moment you're no longer useful or relevant. Take the corporate executive who spends 25 years climbing the ladder, sacrificing family dinners, health, and friendships to earn that C-suite title. He finally gets it, the corner office, the respect, the paycheck, only to realize that his kids are grown and barely know him. His health is in shambles, and the role itself feels like a cage rather than a prize. Another example is the influencer who curates every moment of their life to appear flawless. On camera, they're adored by millions. Off camera, they're anxious, exhausted, and unable to enjoy life without wondering how it will look to their audience. I also remember reading about a lawyer who had dreamed since law school of making partner. When it finally happened, she threw a massive celebration, and then confessed to a colleague that she felt nothing but emptiness. All those years of missed birthdays and 80-hour weeks had been traded for a title that didn't change her daily misery one bit. Instead of chasing recognition for its own sake, focus on authentic impact. That means asking yourself, would this still matter to me if no one else ever saw it? If the answer is yes, you're on the right track. Impact could mean creating something of lasting value, nurturing strong relationships, or developing skills that give you freedom and confidence. For example, instead of spending years angling for a title at work, you could pour that energy into building a skill set that makes you irreplaceable and gives you the option to create your own opportunities. Instead of measuring success in likes or applause, measure it in moments of growth, in how deeply you connect with others, and in whether you're living a life that feels true to you. True fulfillment comes when your internal compass guides you more than other people's opinions. Status fades, but the legacy of what you create, how you grow, who you love, and who loves you, that's what endures. If you think this is the only way you can break out of a cycle of wasting your time, just wait until you hear this next one, because it traps even more people in a life they don't truly want. Goal number 2, waiting for the perfect time to start. Why it seems appealing but is ultimately a waste of time. The idea of waiting for the right moment feels safe. We convince ourselves that once we've saved more money, gained more experience, or seen certain circumstances align, we'll finally make our move, whether that's starting a business, traveling, learning a new skill, or changing careers. On the surface, it sounds reasonable. Careful planning and preparation should set us up for success. But the truth is that perfect moment never comes. Life is always messy. There will always be uncertainties, risks, and reasons to delay. While we're waiting for the stars to align, weeks turn into months, months into years, and opportunities slip through our fingers. In the end, we realize that the waiting wasn't preparation. It was procrastination disguised as prudence. One common misconception is that delay equals improvement, that the longer we wait, the more ready we'll be. Another is that conditions have to be ideal before action is worth taking. Many people also believe that starting small or imperfectly will somehow damage their chances in the long run, so they prefer to hold out for the grand, flawless launch. But here's the reality. The right time is something you create through action, not something you stumble upon by waiting. Momentum builds clarity, not the other way around. I once spoke with a man who had been just about to start his dream coffee shop for over a decade. Every year he told himself he'd wait until he found the perfect location, had more capital, or the economy was stronger. Eventually, someone else opened a coffee shop in the exact spot he'd always wanted, and it became the most popular cafe in town. Another example is a friend of mine who kept putting off writing her novel because she was still researching. After years of gathering notes and ideas, she admitted she'd lost the emotional spark for the story. She waited so long for the right conditions that she missed the season of her life when she truly cared about the project. Stop looking for the perfect time. Start looking for the smallest possible action you can take today. If you want to switch careers, send one email to someone in that field. If you want to travel, set aside a tiny portion of your income now. If you want to start a creative project, write the first messy draft or record the first rough video. Progress, not perfection, is what gets you closer to your dreams. Life doesn't reward those who wait for the perfect wave. It rewards those who start paddling. And speaking of moving forward, a lot of people confuse being busy with making progress. Which brings us to the next trap. Goal number 3, trying to do it all. Busyness has become a badge of honor. We glorify the grind, the packed calendar, the endless multitasking. It feels like proof that we're important, ambitious, and moving forward. When you're juggling multiple projects, hobbies, or side hustles, it feels productive, like you're maximizing every ounce of potential. But here's the truth. When you try to do everything, you rarely do anything well. Your energy gets spread so thin that nothing receives the level of focus needed to actually grow. You end up exhausted, spinning plates, mistaking motion for progress. Being busy doesn't mean you're building a meaningful life. It often means you're avoiding the hard choice of deciding what matters most. One misconception is that versatility equals success, that the more things you dabble in, the more doors will magically open. Another is that saying yes to everything will accelerate growth, when in reality, it usually leads to shallow experiences and burnout. People also think slowing down or narrowing their focus means wasting potential, as if choosing one priority means abandoning all the others. But in reality, focus multiplies potential. Excellence doesn't come from scattering yourself everywhere. It comes from channeling yourself deeply into the things that matter most. I knew an entrepreneur in his 20s who bragged about running 3 businesses at once: an e-commerce store, a digital marketing agency, and a coaching program. On social media, he looked like the poster child for hustle culture. In reality, he was constantly overwhelmed, delivering half-finished products, missing deadlines, and burning bridges with clients. Within 2 years, all 3 businesses collapsed, not because he wasn't capable, but because his divided focus never allowed any of them to thrive. Another example, a university student I mentored joined every club, committee, and event possible. Her resume looked incredible. President of this, organizer of that, member of 5 other groups. But by graduation she realized she had no close friendships, no deep expertise, and no clear sense of direction. She had been everywhere, but nowhere deeply. She later admitted she would have been better off choosing 2 things she cared about, and pouring her heart into them, rather than scattering her energy for the illusion of achievement. And maybe you've seen this in everyday life. The parent who tries to juggle a demanding career, multiple hobbies, side hustles, and social obligations, all while wondering why they feel constantly exhausted and disconnected from their own kids. Spreading yourself thin doesn't just cost productivity, it costs presence. Trade in doing it all for doing what matters most. That means identifying the few things, not 10, not 20, that will create the biggest difference in your life and going all in on those. Ask yourself, if I could only succeed in 1 or 2 areas, which would change my life the most? Once you know, ruthlessly cut the distractions. Every no you say to the unimportant is a yes to what truly matters. Imagine what your life would look like if you poured the same energy you scatter across 10 commitments into just 2. Your health, your closest relationships, your craft, or a business you deeply care about. The results wouldn't just add up, they'd multiply. Here's the truth. Focus isn't about limiting yourself. It's about unlocking your full power. The people who make the biggest impact in the world aren't the ones who did it all. They're the ones who chose carefully, focused deeply, and gave their best to the few things that mattered most. Now, before we jump into the next area where people waste their lives, let me pause for a second. If this is resonating with you and you never want to miss content about building a life that actually matters, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. And share in the comments. What's one thing you're cutting out of your life to make room for what really counts? Alright, now let's tackle a goal that feels safe and respectable, but might secretly be a big trap. Goal hash 4. Pursuing a perfect life path that was never truly yours. From childhood, most of us are handed a script. Go to school, get good grades, earn a degree, land a stable job, buy a house, get married, raise kids, work hard until retirement. It's presented as a neat, safe, respectable path, one that promises security and approval. On paper, it looks flawless. Who wouldn't want certainty and the comfort of knowing they're on track? But here's the problem. If that path doesn't actually fit who you are, then every step forward feels like a small betrayal of yourself. You may achieve everything on the checklist, but wake up one day with the crushing realization that you've been living someone else's definition of success. The perfect life path can turn into a golden cage, shiny on the outside, suffocating on the inside. Many people assume the safest path is automatically the happiest one. They believe following the traditional timeline is a guarantee of fulfillment, even if they've never questioned whether they want it themselves. Another misconception is that changing direction later in life is a sign of failure, as though stepping off the beaten track means you've wasted the years you spent climbing it. And perhaps the most dangerous belief is that if you choose differently, others will think less of you. But the truth is, when you live by default instead of by design, you end up sacrificing authenticity for approval, and approval never fills the hole left by a life unlived. I once spoke with a man in his 50s who had spent his entire adult life in finance. He was successful, respected, and financially secure. Everything the script said he should want, but he confessed that his real dream had always been to teach high school history. He had buried that passion because it wasn't practical, and didn't fit the image his family expected. When he finally admitted it, he broke down in tears, not because he hated his career, but because he realized he had lived 2/3 of his life for other people's approval. Another example, a woman in her late 20s who had followed the timeline perfectly. College degree, check. Marriage, check. Mortgage, check. From the outside she looked like the model of stability, but inside she felt suffocated. She realized she had never stopped to ask, do I actually want these things? She later divorced, sold her house, and started over. A terrifying process, but also the first time in her life she felt free. Even in smaller, everyday choices this shows up. People staying in jobs they hate because it's what people expect, or sticking to majors in university chosen by their parents. The regret often doesn't hit immediately. It creeps in quietly, years later, when they look back and wonder, whose life did I just live? Instead of following the default script, create your own. That starts by asking, if nobody else ever knew about my choices, would I still make them? If the answer is yes, you're living authentically. Focus on aligning your life with your own values, not society's checklist. That doesn't mean throwing everything away or being reckless. It means daring to ask yourself what a fulfilling life actually looks like for you, and then having the courage to take steps toward it, even if those steps don't match what everyone else is doing. Maybe fulfillment means a slower pace, or building something creative, or choosing experiences over possessions. Whatever it is, chasing it will feel risky at first, but it's far less risky than living decades of quiet regret. At the end of the day, security without authenticity isn't really security. It's just a safer way to waste your one precious life. And if you've ever felt the pressure to look perfect to everyone else, then the next trap will hit close to home. Many of us still fall into another subtle trap, putting our own happiness on hold. We tell ourselves, I'll enjoy life later, once I've earned it. But that later often never comes, which brings us to the next goal that wastes more lives than almost any other. Goal hash 5. Delaying happiness until someday. It feels responsible, even admirable, to sacrifice today for a better tomorrow. We tell ourselves, once I get that promotion, once I hit my savings goal, once the kids are older, once I retire, then I'll finally relax and enjoy life. On paper it looks smart, suffer now, enjoy later. But here's the brutal truth. Later is never guaranteed. Life is unpredictable, health fails, circumstances shift, and the future you're working toward may not even arrive the way you expect. The tragedy is that people spend decades postponing joy for some imaginary someday, only to realize too late that they missed the best years of their life waiting for permission to be happy. The most dangerous misconception is that happiness is a destination, that it's something you unlock once you reach certain milestones like financial security, retirement, or the dream house. Another common belief is that joy is something you have to earn by grinding, sacrificing, and proving your worth over decades. And perhaps the saddest misconception of all is that delaying happiness somehow makes it sweeter, as if the more you deny yourself now, the more fulfilled you'll feel later. In reality, this mindset numbs you to the present. It teaches your brain that happiness is always just around the corner, and therefore never here, never now. I once read the story of a man who worked 60, 70-hour weeks for decades with a single goal: retire early and finally start living. He skipped vacations, missed family milestones, and poured everything into the promise of later. Just 2 months after his retirement, he had a fatal heart attack. All the dreams he had stockpiled for the future died with him, never lived. Another example, a woman I knew dreamed of traveling the world, but she kept putting it off until her kids were grown and her schedule was clear. By the time she had the time and money, arthritis made walking long distances painful. She told me with tears in her eyes, "I waited my whole life for the wrong time." And you don't need such dramatic stories to see this trap in action. How many people live for the weekend, or tell themselves they'll start enjoying life after the next project, the next promotion, the next big thing? They condition themselves to believe happiness is always one step away, and by the time they stop running, they've forgotten how to enjoy the present altogether. Stop postponing joy. Stop telling yourself that happiness belongs to future you. Instead, learn to integrate it into your daily life. That doesn't mean abandoning responsibility or quitting your job tomorrow. It means refusing to live in a constant state of not yet. Ask yourself, what's one small thing I can do this week that makes me feel alive, even if everything else stays the same? It could be as simple as carving out an hour for a hobby, having an unhurried meal with someone you love, or finally saying yes to that trip you've been dreaming about, even if it's just a short one. The mindset shift is this: happiness is not a prize you earn at the finish line. It's the fuel that sustains you on the journey. If you keep pushing joy into the future, you'll reach that future and realize you trained yourself never to feel it. Don't wait for someday. Live in a way that lets you feel pieces of someday today. If this hit you hard, if you realized you've been delaying joy, pause for a second and hit like on this video. It tells me this message resonated and it helps more people break free from the someday trap. And while you're at it, subscribe so you don't miss more content like this, because this community is all about living now, not later. And finally, the last trap might be the toughest to face because it's the one that keeps countless people stuck polishing instead of progressing. So let's wrap this up by putting everything together and asking the one question that really matters. We've uncovered 5 life goals that waste your time. Here's the truth. Time is the most precious currency you have. Every hour spent on hollow goals is an hour stolen from what actually matters. So ask yourself right now, which of these traps am I caught in? And what small, brave step can I take today to walk away from it? Life isn't about working harder on the wrong things. It's about choosing wisely, focusing deeply, and making sure that when you look back you can say, I didn't waste my life, I lived it. If this video woke something up in you, don't let it stop here. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss content that helps you cut through the noise and build a life that's truly yours. Tell me in the comments, which of these 5 traps have you fallen into, and what are you going to do differently starting today? I will read every single one, and your story might be the spark that inspires someone else. Remember, you don't get another life. Stop wasting this one, start living it today.